Hi guys, this is Klazart from the Nerdy Commentary, and this time I'm commentating on Game 4 of the Best of 5 series between Kwanro and Iris, the Avalon MSL Semi-Finals 2009 season. Again, just before I jump into this is going to be a Heartbreak Rage, I just wanted to clear something up. I just wanted to put the whole speed talking debate to rest once and for all. I guess I'd like to open by saying that I'd like to think that I'm open to constructive criticism from the fans, and if you know, people tell me something that I missed or that I've done wrong, that I can take that into stock and try and incorporate that into my commentary as I hope to continue improving, as we all hope to do in whatever it is that we do or don't do. At the same time, for those of you guys who are worried that I might change who I am or do things differently, that's not going to happen. I am who I am, and I've always believed in staying true to oneself, as cheesy and corny as that sounds, and that's something that I'm always going to do. So on the specific issue of speed talking, I guess the best way to put it is that, you know, that's part of my commentary, so that's not going to go when things get excited. I think the pace of my voice picks up, and that's not going to change. But I think what had started happening a little bit recently was that I did get quite a lot of positive feedback about the speed talking from you guys. It looks like Iris is just building his racks, just starting up his racks, and it looks like he might be actually starting an 8 racks, and he's building his slightly off position to perhaps conceal the timing of it from his opponent, and that overlord coming across. But meanwhile, it looks like we might have a 9 pool here from Kwanro, so that should potentially cancel out that 8 racks. Has he gone for a 12 pool or definitely a 12 match? He would have been in a lot of trouble. But yeah, back to the whole speed talking debate. Recently I received some good feedback from you guys about that, and I think that not only just to kind of please the fans or simply because it was fun, but also as a sort of a heat check to challenge myself and see how fast I could go, I started doing a little bit of speed talking intentionally, and I think this was noticeable in some of the very recent commentaries, and almost kind of a challenge to myself to see how fast could I really go. And I think that the result of that was that on a couple of occasions it sounded forced, and it was more about concentrating on talking as fast as I could than really thinking about what was happening in the game and enjoying the game itself. And the speed talking almost became an end in itself, and I think some of the fans picked up on that intentionally or unintentionally, and I think that's what bothered them. So I think that's a very valid and constructive criticism that the fans had that I felt I needed to take on board. So as such, the only change really that I've made is that I'm not going to try and intentionally speed talk. When it happens naturally when something exciting happens. And hey, well, you know what? I might on occasion do that just for the sheer fun of it. And those 6 earlings just going to see that they're not going to spot that SCV coming around, but that's not going to bother Kwanro too much. And this 9 pool is probably going to get cancelled out by the 8 racks. And this is, of course, a must-win game for Kwanro. He really needs to take this game down. He's now pulling that Reen back because he realizes those Zerglings are on their way. He's now building a factory in a proxy position. This is going to be huge. Iris building a factory in a proxy position. So finally we're getting to see the aggressive Berserker Terran Iris, although we saw a little glimpse of him. The funny thing I have to say about both of these players, and now coming in Kwanro with the Zerglings at that supply depot, there is a Marine behind it, and a bunch of SCVs there to repair it, so he should be okay in terms of holding this off, and it's just a question of whether or not he can do any damage, and he can't. So Iris defends brilliantly yet again, now getting that factory up, and it's just a question of whether or not Kwanro is going to be able to guess that this factory is coming, because if Iris can sneak that Vulture in there and get a few drone kills, we just know how devastating that can be. Heartbreak Ridge is a map that Terran players tend to do well on. SCV can just scatter around in Kwanro's base. It is a map that Terran players tend to do well on, particularly because it's so difficult for Zerg players to try and secure the 3rd gas, which is kind of like the opposite of Outsider, where it's so easy to get that 3rd and 4th gas and to hold it, which we saw in the previous game in Kwanro versus in this series. Now that factory is up, I'm sure there's going to be a Vulture popping out from it anytime now. But yeah, so for a player like Kwanro, and he's putting that creep call down, he's putting that sunken down just probably as a precautionary measure anyway, now putting that 3rd hatchery down as well inside his main. So he should be okay with this. He should be able to hold his defense if he morphs that creep colony into a sunken. He does. Sometimes you'll see Zerg players just put up those creep colonies and not really morph them, but I think if you're going to put one up that early, that close to your hatchery, not as kind of a forward line, then I think it's not, there's no point having it there unless you actually morph. He's going to see that factory floating up as well, and obviously Iris, I think, probably floating that factory up because he saw this the sunken morphing, and he thought, well, if you could sneak the factory into the back of the Zerg's base, perhaps you could sneak a Vulture in that way, or just because he knew that factory proxy factory would then be used and try to move it in. Now he's going to try and still sneak that Vulture around the rear of Kwanro's base through that mineral line at the top, at the 1 o'clock position with that SCV in play, but there is an Overlord in there that's going to see it, and it looks like he's trying to get that, but the problem with sneaking Vultures through mineralizers, sometimes they do get stuck and can take a long time to get them around, which gives the Zerg player time to get their Zerglings in play. Now Iris managed to plant that factory in Kwanro's base, and he's just trying to force Kwanro to produce more Zerglings. He knows that he's not going to really be able to do too much damage, and that he's managed to sneak a second Vulture in there as well. Drones coming around trying to block that Vulture. Brilliant by Kwanro, brings 4 drones around and takes that Vulture down. That was great reaction by Kwanro. I've got to say, both these players, of course, have a reputation for being aggressive, but Iris actually seems to be doing better lately when he kind of plays more on the defensive side of things, when he absorbs the pressure and then attacks at the right moment. It's not just about attacking your opponent going crazy, it's about doing it at the right moment in time. Iris once again now has got that Vulture in Kwanro's base, and we know how devastating this can be with Vulture Micro. Kwanro with the Zerglings trying to take it down, with Kwanro critically, I did not spot that Hydra's Den. He's got Hydras out, so he's going to be able to close it down. So Iris floating that factory in to try and sneak a Vulture. I didn't think he was actually going to build necessarily Vulture. I thought he was just going to try and force Kwanro to perhaps make a counter to it. Kwanro obviously did build that Hydra's Den. Now Iris with 2 Vultures in Kwanro's base is killed at least 1 probe thus far, but Kwanro, I have to say, has done an admirable job. 3 Vultures so far have managed to foray into his territory, and only 1 drone kill so far, so I think Kwanro will be pretty happy with that. He's got a decent sized force now of Hydralis and Lings, which I presume he's going to transition into Lurkerling. That Vulture is going to get taken down, so Kwanro is finally going to be able to clean up his defense, and he's going to be in a pretty decent position in terms of his economy. I don't think Iris has expanded yet, but Iris has got that starport with control tower down. Now he's got a Wraith out as well, but Kwanro is going to be well placed to defend this, and I don't think Iris is going to do any significant damage with that Wraith. The factory's floated back over. Iris with an SCV sitting there as well. I'm not sure what that SCV is sitting there for, whether he's planning to build something else with it or not. But that Wraith coming over just to get some scouting information more than anything else, see what Kwanro's building, and just kind of keep him on his toes and distract him. He does have Hydralis there, however, so that Wraith isn't going to do any significant damage. It's just going to be ushered away quite comfortably by Kwanro. But I feel like Kwanro's going to be in a strong position because Iris is still playing off 1 base and there's no sign of him expanding yet. Kwanro has got 3 hatcheries up and running, and Iris's early pressure has come to naught. And really, when you don't expand at all against a Zerg player who has expanded, I mean, Kwanro obviously did go for a 9 pull as well, we've got to remember that, so it wasn't the fastest of expansions, but Kwanro has got that expansion up and running. He's got the 3 hatchery build up and running. It's not like he's on a 2 hatchery build versus a 1 base Terran. He's on a 3 hatchery build versus a 1 base Terran, and that puts him in a very strong position. And I'm not sure why Iris has chosen to go down this route. Perhaps he felt that he needed the element of surprise after the last game. Remember, he had to remember, and this is the psychology of StarCraft, guys. Iris was so confident and just doing his thing and just dancing to his own groove, ignoring Kwanro's crappy techno-pop, but now Kwanro's techno-pop has just gotten into Iris's head. He can't get out of it. He can't free his mind from that, and he's now dancing to a completely different tune. Iris now bringing that dropship in. This drop is going to be absolutely critical for Iris. He really needs to do some damage to Kwanro here, considering that I don't think he's even yet started up his expansion, and he's really gambling everything on finishing Kwanro off early. Kwanro, he looking for his first move, has not seen those Medic Marines. Those Medic Marines rushing, trying to get some drone kills. Kwanro immediately bunching them up. He needs to get those drones away. He managed to pull the drones away. Now the Lurker's Hydralis coming in to try and take out those Medic Marines. He's got enough Hydralis there, I think, to be able to combat this. Medic Marines can be very strong against Hydralis, but Kwanro has enough Hydralis in play to be able to combat this. So despite Iris getting a decent drop, Iris is going to make the horrible mistake of bringing that dropship into play and almost losing that dropship. I think that was a mistake, trying to save those 2 Marines and medics. I suppose he felt he needed to. Well, I guess in the end it was actually worked out okay for him because he managed to save the units, but his dropship has taken a lot of damage, which means he's